Singapore is not a democracy. It's a luxury surveillance state with Wi-Fi and Starbucks. Sounds offensive? Don't worry. The government already knows you clicked this video, but relax, they'll forgive you. Because unlike North Korea, Singapore lets you complain, as long as it's on Instagram stories that expire in 24 hours. This is not your typical dictatorship. This is dictatorship with premium customer service. You don't get propaganda, you get public education campaigns. You don't get fear, you get social harmony. And you don't get censorship, you get community guidelines. Welcome to the world's nicest surveillance state, where democracy is a decor item placed neatly between the iPad ordering kiosk and the framed Lee Kuan Yew quote at your nearest Starbucks reserve. Now, here's what makes Singapore fascinating. It doesn't look like authoritarianism. It looks like order. The trains run on time. The streets are spotless. Even chewing gum is illegal, because apparently freedom is fine as long as it doesn't stick to the floor. Singapore mastered what China couldn't and what the West refuses to admit. People don't need democracy. They need comfort. Give them fast Wi-Fi, safety, and air conditioning. And they'll happily trade freedom of speech for freedom from humidity. But behind this pristine calm lies something far darker, a system that rewards silence, monitors obedience, and labels every act of rebellion as social instability. So today we'll explore how Singapore built a 5-star dictatorship, so elegant even its citizens defend it online while being watched by it. By the end of this video, you'll either want to move to Singapore or delete your browser history. When you land at Changi Airport, it feels like heaven, until you realize heaven has CCTV at every gate. Even the orchids are probably scanned for dissent. Singapore isn't just clean, it's controlled cleanliness. Nothing happens by accident. The trash bins, the escalator music, even the humidity inside the MRT, all carefully managed to remind you the system knows best. This is the city where obedience isn't forced, it's engineered, and it started long before Marina Bay Sands existed. After independence, Lee Kuan Yew didn't just build a nation, he built a psychological operating system. Democracy, installed in name only. The real software running underneath was Confucian capitalism with Western branding. It looked British, but it behaved like your Asian grandmother, strict, efficient, and always watching. Singapore perfected a bureaucratic religion where breaking the rules is not just illegal, it's immoral. You don't litter because you fear the fine. You don't protest because you fear the paperwork. You don't question because you fear being called disrespectful. It's not a police state, it's a parental state. And the citizens? They're the well-behaved children who compete for scholarships and queue for bubble tea like model students in a social experiment. Ironically, it works. Singapore has zero corruption, zero chaos, and zero political competition. The government doesn't need to censor you, it simply educates you until you censor yourself. Every citizen becomes a walking algorithm, predictable, polite, and painfully efficient. The result? A society so disciplined that chaos feels immoral and spontaneity feels like a crime. Singapore turned order into art and obedience into identity. It's a nation where compliance is patriotic and disagreement is foreign interference. You think you're living in a democracy, but really, you're performing in a very well-funded illusion. Singapore didn't force people to obey. It made obedience look aspirational. You don't live under control here. You subscribe to it like a premium plan on civilization. Everything in this city is polished to perfection. Marina Bay Sands glitters like democracy's costume jewelry. The Orchard Road boutiques whisper freedom through contactless payments. And even the hawker centres come with QR codes, because nothing says people's culture like cashless curry. This is what I call authoritarianism with velvet gloves. No dictator screaming on TV. No military marching down the street. Just an endless feed of smiling citizens, latte foam, and polite efficiency, all broadcast in 4K. Here, submission is not a weakness, it's a status symbol. The quieter you are, the richer you look. Why protest when your condo lobby smells like jasmine and the Wi-Fi never disconnects? Singapore found the ultimate psychological hack. Replace fear with lifestyle, and people will police themselves. You don't need barbed wire when everyone's trapped in their own mortgage. In most democracies, rebellion is fashionable. In Singapore, rebellion lowers property value. Even the freedom to speak is packaged safely, inside polite panels, moderated forums, and citizen dialogues, where every question is pre-approved like a loan. You don't express outrage here. You express constructive feedback. And the government doesn't bribe you, it curates you. It gives you safety, order, and a Starbucks on every corner, then gently reminds you that none of this exists without them. You call it prosperity. They call it compliance. Either way, everyone smiles for the photo. Luxury authoritarianism is the genius of Singapore, turning dictatorship into decor, control into comfort, and obedience into the new definition of success. It's not a cage, it's a condo with a view. And the best part, you'll defend it because it feels too comfortable to leave. In most countries, the government tells people what to think. In Singapore, the government doesn't have to, because by the time you're old enough to question authority, you already agree with it. This is what I call the democracy of fear. Not fear of death or violence. No, that's too primitive. Singapore's fear is elegant, polite, and invisible. It's the fear of losing status, the fear of public embarrassment, the fear of being the one person who questions things in a room full of perfect silence. You see, Singaporeans are not brainwashed, they're socially conditioned. From kindergarten, children are trained not to interrupt, not to argue, not to cause trouble. It's not obedience, it's harmony. And by adulthood, that harmony becomes muscle memory. The average Singaporean doesn't rebel, they self-correct. They don't need censorship. They have self-censorship. They don't need surveillance. They have peer surveillance. Their conscience is basically the Prime Minister's voice saying, be responsible. In this system, fear isn't an emotion. It's a social skill. You learn how to stay invisible, stay polite, and stay employable. Even the slightest whiff of controversy can cost you your job, your scholarship, or your chance at a BTO flat. And here's the irony. This invisible fear doesn't make people miserable. It makes them productive. Fear is the fuel that powers Singapore's efficiency. Every form filled out perfectly, every queue orderly, every law obeyed. But in exchange for that flawless order, something precious quietly disappears. The right to be human. Because being human means being messy, loud, emotional, all the things that don't fit neatly into an HDB floor plan. Singapore mastered the art of replacing rebellion with routine. People don't rise up, they just rise early for work. They don't shout, they type anonymously. They don't resist, they comply beautifully. Welcome to the democracy of fear, where everyone's free to think, as long as they all think the same thing. Every few years, Singapore holds elections, the political version of spring cleaning. The banners go up, the candidates smile, and citizens line up to vote. For the same people they voted for last time, this isn't democracy. It's democracy-themed performance art. The ruling party always wins. The opposition always tries. And everyone politely claps for another successful election. In most countries, elections are a competition. In Singapore, they're a confirmation ceremony. It's the national ritual of saying, yes, Daddy Government, we still trust you. Opposition parties exist, like decorative houseplants. They look nice, they make the room seem alive, but they'll never take root. Every new opposition face gets interviewed, dissected, then politely discredited, usually before dessert. Singapore's political system runs like a Swiss watch, beautiful, precise, and impossible to open without voiding the warranty. Every institution, from media to education, works in perfect synchronization. The result? There's no need for rigging. The people willingly maintain the rig. Criticism is not banned, it's bureaucratized. You can complain about policies, but not about power. You can question the system, but not the family name behind it. It's like being allowed to rearrange furniture in a house you don't own. And the voters? They're the perfect audience. They dress up, take selfies at polling stations, and post captions like, "doing my civic duty." Then they go home to the same government and feel proud that everything worked smoothly. This is the illusion of choice. A world where change feels risky, stability feels patriotic, and power looks too polished to touch. The beauty of Singapore's democracy is that it's not fake. It's selectively real. It gives you just enough freedom to feel modern, just enough debate to feel alive, and just enough votes to keep the illusion breathing. Because here, democracy isn't something you fight for. It's something you perform once every few years, and then forget until the next campaign slogan reminds you how lucky you are to have it. Every dictator dreams of ruling like Singapore. Absolute control, zero bloodshed, and 5-star TripAdvisor ratings. It's the holy grail of governance, autocracy that feels like luxury. China studies Singapore like it's a self-help book. The Gulf monarchies admire it as dictatorship done tastefully. Even Western politicians whisper, maybe democracy needs a little less democracy. Singapore is the Apple Store of authoritarianism, sleek, silent, and terrifyingly efficient. No glitches, no protests, no freedom of press. But the user interface is flawless. Everything just works. This is the export model. You package control as efficiency, replace propaganda with public service messaging, and wrap it all in a polite accent that sounds vaguely British. While other regimes rely on fear, Singapore uses trust. Citizens don't fear the government, they believe in it. It's not oppression, it's paternalism with a smile. And when you make people proud of their own obedience, you don't need to silence them, they'll silence each other. That's why every strong man on earth points to Singapore and says, "See, it works." They dream of running their own sanitized utopia. Just swap skyscrapers for oil fields or surveillance apps. Singapore proved you don't need soldiers on the street. You just need data analytics and predictable citizens. Meanwhile, the West doesn't know what to make of it. They see freedom without freedom, capitalism without chaos, and citizens who seem genuinely content. How do you criticize a cage when everyone inside it smiles? But the catch is this: Singapore's success isn't scalable. It's surgical. It depends on a small population, strict meritocracy, and a shared trauma of survival. It's not a model. It's a miracle that borders on myth. Yet the myth sells beautifully. Politicians worldwide sell Singapore-style governance like it's a luxury brand, efficient, emotionless. They don't mention the part where individuality goes missing somewhere between immigration control and the next Starbucks. Singapore didn't just build a nation, it built a template for benevolent tyranny. Proof that democracy can be optional as long as the Wi-Fi never disconnects. Perfection always comes with a price, and in Singapore, that price is the soul. The city runs like a Swiss clock, but no one remembers who wound it. The streets shine, the MRT hums, the skyline glows. Yet behind the glass towers, there's a strange silence, the kind that money can't decorate. Singapore traded chaos for control and creativity for compliance. Here nothing breaks except spontaneity. No one shouts because no one dares. No one dreams because everything is already planned. It's a nation that conquered poverty, disease, and corruption, only to be defeated by boredom. Ask a young Singaporean about passion, and you'll get a resume. Ask an artist about freedom, and they'll talk about funding guidelines. Ask an old man about happiness, and he'll say, "safe lah." That's the tragedy. Not misery, but managed happiness. Singapore perfected the art of being fine. Everyone's okay. No one's amazing. This is the quiet fatigue of living in a society that works too well, where everything is optimized, but nothing feels alive. You don't rebel because there's nothing to fix. You don't create because there's nothing to sell. You just maintain flawlessly. The irony is brutal. A country that once fought for survival now fights to feel something. The same control that built its miracle now builds its monotony. Every camera that watches over safety also watches over spontaneity. Every rule that protects harmony also imprisons honesty. Every perfect citizen is a little less human. Singapore's perfection isn't fake, it's fragile. And beneath its gleaming surface lies a quiet question that no one asks aloud. If everything is perfect, why do they still feel incomplete? Because perfection is the most beautiful form of control. It convinces you there's nothing left to change. In the end, Singapore did what every other nation only dreams of. It built a system where people obey, willingly. There are no riots, no revolutions, no corruption scandals on the front page. Just quiet prosperity, polite citizens, and laws so strict they might as well be commandments. Singapore doesn't need a dictator because it taught its people to self-govern like monks with credit cards. It doesn't suppress you with violence. It seduces you with comfort. It's not Orwell's 1984. It's Black Mirror with a loyalty program. You can say anything here as long as it's polite. You can do anything as long as it's approved. You can be anyone as long as it fits the plan. That's not freedom. That's frictionless living. Every part of your life optimized, monitored, and politely approved. Freedom replaced with efficiency. Individuality replaced with stability. And somehow you thank the system for it. Because the real genius of Singapore isn't its technology or GDP. It's that it convinced 6 million people to love their cage. Because the cage has marble floors, fast Wi-Fi, and a Starbucks in the lobby. It's the nicest prison in the world. No guards, no gates, just invisible rules written in everyone's mind. And that's why the West can't stop admiring it. Because deep down, even the freest societies secretly envy Singapore's control. They call it discipline. They call it efficiency. They never call it what it truly is, soft tyranny in designer packaging. So here's the real question. Would you trade your freedom for flawless order? Would you choose chaos with choice or comfort with control? Because in Singapore, people already answered. They didn't lose democracy. They outgrew it.